those with long experience in technology transfer and commercialization and those that are just starting. So sometimes we tend to lump all this together and say, here is a number. I don't think that's quite fair. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, I think, as I mentioned, we already have a successful model of collaboration in the oil palm industry. Why is it successful? Because the industry actually actively engaged with the policymaker, which is 1/3 of the Triple Helix, and the research institute, which is the other partner of Triple Helix, meaning that the industry actively engaged. If you, in the old days when I was working in the oil palm industry, even now, the MPOB or the old PORIM, they have a technical advisory committee made up by the big players and the smallholders represented in those TAC, and they plan the research together. Yeah? But these are not replicated in the other industries.
Well, we're starting to see that.
Yes, we're starting to see that in electronics.
Okay, all right, I'll have to take this discussion to the next commercial break, but when we come back later, maybe we can talk about how, okay, now that we have all these success models, these success stories, but how do you replicate that, like you mentioned, to the rest of the research communities and universities? That we will discuss after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the 11th Merdeka Award Roundtable. Now, I'd like to go straight to Dato. Earlier, we talked about how we have a lot of success stories, but, our best inventors may not be the best marketers, right? So on that front, what kind of support is needed to improve the confidence of industries towards the universities in terms of research and collaboration?
Well, I think, again, I will go back to positioning of our product, because that's marketing. And actually, we have had, well, if not had a lot, but we have had quite a few research products which have been very successful. For example, the rubber wood industry. People tend to rubber wood, yeah, but before the rubber wood industry was researched by FRIM, and it was at 300,000 ringgit research. There was no rubber wood industry. But FRIM actually found a solution to the problem of actually treating the rubber wood to turn it into furniture. And now it blossomed into, I think it's 10 billion or so industry. So that is an example of successful commercialization of research. But if you ask 10 people, you do a straw poll, most people wouldn't be able to quote that. They wouldn't even know about this successful creation of a new industry based on rubber wood by FRIM, for example. So I think there is a need to, one is we need to communicate this, because at the end of the day, people need to feel confident about the technology that has been developed. Yeah? And again, in terms of context, a lot of people dismiss the oil palm industry, but that's a good example. Now we are doing this with Crest, the electronics industry. So I think all parties, the government, the universities, and the industry, we need to work together to showcase what have we done together, which is good and successful.
And who's taking that lead?
Now, on the university side, okay, there has been a lot of effort by the research universities to make promotions, communications effort to showcase whatever that they have.
We have Innovation Commercialization Center. We have in all universities, we have university holding companies, a commercial arm to do that. And then what's lacking is the perception and the mindset. This is all the homegrown technology, If we are not the one who use it, who else? So this is where the university researchers feel a bit disappointed. Whenever we develop something, I've gone through this, my career more than 20 years as a lecturer and researcher. I've gone through all this. We develop at-par products in university, but whenever you want to market it, the industry is still thinking of overseas products.
Okay, I'd like to get to Biruntha because what are the factors hampering that initiative to want to work with our local talents?
Yes, in terms of the industry side, there would be, like I mentioned just now, they are not aware of our IPs that we are churning. So we actually, the universities are churning out some good quality IPs. However, the number is not enough. So we need to actually improve the quantity and the quality of our research, both applied and fundamental. And in order for industries to take this up, we need to, industries or GLCs, whoever they are working together with, the technology transfer officers or the innovation officers in some universities you call them, they should have a clear strategy in terms of promoting this. So if we are just going to promote these IPs in local road shows, are we serving the objective? Are we really reaching out to the right audiences? Are we creating the right awareness? So we need to actually set that strategy. We should allocate a budget, allocate a strategy to market this. Are we pitching it the right way? Because if you're coming from the university or the research side and you're going to just talk about technical side of this innovation, they won't be interested. Are you talking about dollar and cents? What can this innovation bring to the table for these companies? How big it can go? Is this a disruptive technology? These are the elements that you need to pitch to these entities or to attract the investment for these IPs. So is the university or the researchers well positioned? If they're not, where should they get the training from?
Okay.
We need to segregate, when we talk about the industry, the GLCs. What are the challenges of the GLCs working with the universities? Because they are different size, they are different than the SMEs. Now, the SMEs, we may or may not include depending on who we talk to, the startup. So maybe we should actually look at how are the startups working with the academia, how are the traditional SMEs working with academia, and how are the GLCs with their partly national mission work with the academia. So these are different components of the industries, and we cannot lump them together because one would expect naturally for the GLC to have the money, and by right, or maybe I'm wrong, but to have some appetite for risk, because it's impossible anywhere in the world. No universities will develop a product ready to sell. Nowhere in the world.
So that's really about understanding what the market needs.
No, in the sense that if you are talking about university, like say IP, any IP which is developed, it is based on research. Once you reach the stage where you actually commercialize it, the patent is not there. There may be industrial design. So to bring from that patent to commercialization, that's not the job of universities actually. Yeah. So now we have three different components of the industries. The startups, their risk appetite is very high.
Different breed altogether.
Very high, right? But again, as you mentioned, the taxi case. No, we need to first. A lot of people say, why did they go south and raise the money? No, first we must look at how did they get funded in the Malaysian scenario, because the environment allows them to be funded. But if you reach a certain stage, you need to go out. But you do not deny the contribution of the initial funder. Now, Mark and I, we have a company which is called Sentinext. It's developing the first world-class vaccine, which is using a virus-like particle to address head, foot, and mouth disease. It's world-class, it's the first. It's a bivalent vaccine. No other product in the world at this point in time. Now, we have spent, up to now, $30, $40 million. We will not be able to add another $100, $200 million. We will need to go out of Malaysia. But if it is the same case as this My Taxi, people will say, you see, Malaysian environment doesn't support.
I'll have to take this discussion again to our final commercial. But when we come back, let's talk about how do you ensure that those support are in place for the different stages towards innovation and then towards commercialization.
Working capital is another issue.
Okay, to that we will come back with Mark later. Stay with us. Welcome back to the 11th Merdeka Award Roundtable. Now, going into this final segment, I'd like to ask, get your views about what are some of the sectors areas that Malaysians can focus on in terms of university and industry collaboration. Dato.
Well, I would say, for example, we have very good membrane research in this country. And Prof. Fauzi, he's here. I mean, sorry, that Prof. No, he's an advisor to Saudi Arabian government, for example. His research work, as I mentioned just now in the Scopus record, his group is #1. So we should actually we should look at all this strength that we have and flip on it. We really go and look at it, what can we do with it? And membrane is a very high-end technology. It's a very small elite group, but very high-end, very high-tech. And again, if you look at UTM, there's the vibration center, again, world-class.
Noise and vibration.
That's why in the beginning when you asked me, I said I will separate between commercialization of IP, which is very long-term, very difficult, very expensive sometimes, and technology transfer across the continuum. Because technology transfer can occur through the students, but it can occur through consultancy, advisory, and the rest of things that happen, lab services even. Yeah. So I think those are the things that when we talk to the marketplace, the universities need to focus on. Because part of the problem is because even in Parliament, the question has always been the same. How much money we have spent on research, how much we have commercialized in terms of product. But nobody has asked actually how much services have been rendered to the industry. What are the value in terms of their return on investment. These are the things that we need to focus on, because then we have that feel good. I mean, the confidence in the academia. Because whether you like it or not, those who are doing the pitching are the academia, not the industry. The academia is doing the pitching.
Malaysia needs to identify what are the key sub-clusters that it needs to work on. And for example, we do know that, for example, Motorola has Malaysia as their global center for research in walkie-talkies. We then need to ensure that on the academia side, we have also the same specialization to support that sub-cluster. We have now some of the largest solar panel manufacturers. Again, how do we ensure that we again have that same cluster? So again, I think it's about ensuring that there is that alignment between industry and academia. And I think initiatives like what Mark mentioned, like CRESS, I think one way to, shall we say, kickstart, because sometimes it's chicken and egg, industry says why industry not doing it, industry say why university is not doing it. One of the areas we've done is that like CRESS is a co-funded model. So I think where government provides some funds, but it needs to have a matching fund from industry to, in a sense, decide together which are the ones that we
Well,
go
on that
ahead on.
note, looking at our discussion, it does seem that these investments are still being led by GLCs, the government. How do you get more private sector on board?
Well, one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning, there are a couple of initiatives that have just started in the past year, Steinbeis and PPRN. Steinbeis, what Steinbeis does is it provides a platform where industry can actually come to Steinbeis and say, I've got this problem which I'm working on, I need some expert help. So Steinbeis will go into the network and find the right expert, whether it's a researcher from a university, a research institute, or even from the private sector, and bring them together. And under this model, PPRN as well, which is providing a research network from the universities, the researchers, let's say they're working in a university, they have to spend 20% of their time taking on these sorts of projects. So that is hopefully going to provide more organized linkage between industry and university researcher. So by the individual researcher taking on these sorts of projects, they spend, if we are allowed to spend 1/5 of their time doing this, they get paid for it as well. They get a better insight into what industry needs.
To incentivize both parties,
Yes.
mainly.
Yeah.
Right.
And for the company. Yeah.
The private sector have to have their skin in the
That's
game.
right.
But like you said earlier, private investors are still more comfortable investing in brick and mortar companies, property development, something that gives them a definite return. In terms of research and development, it's still a big bet.
Yeah. So from university point of view, we would like to see a lot more like technology scouting, like what Dato Halim, MTDC have done a great job. They scout technology from all over Malaysia's university and research institute, and then incubate them. They not even scout the technology, but they scout also, they train the future CEO. Again, as you said, GLC. So if the industry can have like, scouting a footballer, if they do that, very short term, I'm very sure the benefit that it can generate for the company is huge.
In terms of encouraging the industries, right, to participate more or take it up, I would say maybe we could actually adopt models like in UK, like the patent box, where the tax incentives are given to companies who takes up IPs or patents for commercialization. So this encourages even not just GLCs but local SMEs to participate. So this kind of measures would be attractive and should be looked into and implemented. Yeah.
Speaking of SMEs, I still feel that there is a perception again, lack of motivation to innovate. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
Well, actually, again, I will have to re-emphasize my point that we need to differentiate between commercialization of IP and actual technology know-how transfer. Now, you look at SMEs, they have been doing it for years and years, being a conventional company, and you want to turn them into a technology company overnight, that's not going to happen. You want them to acquire a patent and commercialize it, that's not going to happen. But what PPRN is doing is that we want to make them comfortable working with universities. Mm-hmm. But they have to have their skin in the game. You can't give them a grant.
Engagement
yes,
first,
slowly.
Okay.
Like the PPRN, we started with 70-30 and then we moved to 50-50, in terms of the fund needed. So that SMEs, it's a continuous engagement process. Now, of course, the startup is a different ball game altogether, because they start with technology in mind. Mm-hmm. So that's different. And again, I will